Any of the other kids?
Hunter, but I'm received with total contempt. I'm sitting here with a broken heart over these people who have shut me out, that aren't talking to me. You want to ask the question, what did I do to deserve this? Like, what did I do wrong?
He was great at being willing to mother Janelle's kids, okay? But she was never willing to mother or be a good mother to Robyn's kids. The reason I'm not attracted is because she's not being loyal. It feels like, because I feel betrayed. With Garrison, oh my goodness, stupid stuff. He's like blaming me for all the stuff going on in our family. This has gone too long. Garrison, who I asked to move out of the house probably 6 months ago. And then he's mad at me that I'm not coming around. And he basically just tried to cut a relationship. I love you, Dad, but this is goodbye for Garrison's like, Dad, you're being a hypocrite. You're not coming around. And I about lost, and I'm telling you, he's calling me a hypocrite when he's the one that can't be an adult and go get a place. We're not working like a family. We're not a family. There's this unwillingness for some of the family to accept other members of the family, or to communicate with other members of the family, or to make amends with other members of the family. I have somebody in my life who is fundamentally loyal to me, who sees me as the head of the family. I'm saying to you that you and I get that if you're loyal to me.
I just can't believe what he's saying.
I'm not telling Janelle to be more like Robyn. I'm telling Janelle just to be loyal. I was also attracted to your pedigree.
I know.
She had a lot of family that she's a blue blood polygamist. Her family lines in polygamy go really, really deep.
The money. No,
Yeah.
he married me for the title.
It is.
You haven't been around for years. What are you talking about?
What are you talking about? She hasn't been mistreated. There's no victim here. She's lost her faith, her religion, her direction, and now she is wanting out of this marriage. She's proving that she's the independent woman now by telling me how the best way to pack this is. It bothered me to the core.
The kids were like, it looked like in Vegas that you and Dad weren't really close anymore. And
in Vegas?
Uh-huh.
Okay, that's
And
a
I'm
lie.
like-
Because I remember the conversations. I remember what was going on. Our relationship. So either you guys were faking it in front of me. I don't know.
She didn't ask me if it was okay if she moved my stuff out. She just did it. She didn't ask me if it was okay if she moved to Utah and took Truly. She just told me she was going to do it. I don't have time to play like she has time to play. I got a lot of work to do and a lot of responsibilities. I don't get this. Don't show up here and stuff like that. It's like, what are you doing all day? It's certainly not cooking and cleaning, because then, listen, there's nothing to say here. I know that I can't talk Christine to my kids. I don't want to talk her at all, even though that's my natural urge is to do that. I have to control that, because that's not fair. I'm catching myself in this moment here when I'm saying, how long have you guys known? And that's a blame game that I'm playing. In our marriage, I was putting so much effort. I was holding her hand. I was kissing her. Well, I wasn't in love. I was doing it as my duty as a husband. There's an emotion that I'm sensing from her of this wahoo, like, I'm out of here. And it's made me a little crazy. I don't want to move my stuff out. Christine moved me out. I didn't want her to move me out. I didn't give her permission to move me out. It feels hostile to me. I feel like she's done this as a backstab. I've had 3 wives threaten me to leave me on and off our entire marriages. The threat to leave is always out there. It feels like just this major injustice that is being done to me, and it galls me. Ironically, Janelle did sign up for Paedon. When her and I made an agreement that she would come into the family, she agreed wholeheartedly she would run her will into mine, because I had to be the head of the family. And she made that agreement.
Hi friends, it's Kody from Without a Crystal Ball. Welcome back to my channel. It is Monday, October 7th, 2024. I hope everyone's having a wonderful day. The episode that aired on Sister Wives last night, there was an interesting tidbit at the very end that I actually had to keep rewinding, because I was actually shocked that Kody admitted this. And it had to do with an accusation that one of his kids had said to him about why they didn't want to have a relationship with him anymore. And it didn't have anything to do at all with their moms. It had nothing to do with their psyche because of this. It was something to do with their foundational core of who they were and what Kody had done to them as a child growing up the way that they did. Kody Brown admits that one of his children effectively accuses him of brainwashing them and manipulating them. He says that one of his kids called him up and says this. I'll show you the clip here in a minute, but I wanted to show you in the very beginning of this video some of the things that Kody has said in the last several years that would make some of his kids upset, right? So a lot of you watched last night's episode and you're like, why is Robyn acting like this? This was the late fall of 2022. This would have been around December of 2022. What was going on at this time that the family would be reacting this way? What would Robyn be reacting to? Why would she be so worried about these kids? Well, I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that in the fall of 2022, this is the very beginning of season 17. And it's when we see for the very first time Kody and Christine breaking up. And it's probably the very first time some of the kids are seeing what Kody is saying to Christine, but also saying to Janelle. Okay. So if you remember, season 17 first started in September of 2022. In the very span of like that season, they had their conversation where he says, I wasn't attracted to you, where she breaks up with him and he won't let her go. They have the conversation where she tells everyone she's leaving Kody. Janelle finds out that she doesn't have housing and she needs housing. And so she gets an RV. Okay. And she tells the family about that. Kody accuses Janelle of not being loyal to him and demands that she be more like Robyn. He says Robyn is fundamentally loyal, and he, at this point, when this is airing, is demanding that his boys apologize to Robyn. And he's accusing his boys of these really big offenses against Robyn. And so he's the one that is really fueling this anger about Robyn, saying, you're doing this to Robyn. And so because you're doing this to Robyn, you can't see me, pitting the family against Robyn. And then now in that episode that you just watched last night, he's saying everyone doesn't like you. Well, Kody, that's because you told everyone for years that they needed to be better people like Robyn and more compliant and more obedient. That's your fault, Kody. Now, it's not to say that Robyn doesn't have fault in this, but what is actually happening behind the scenes and what I've been telling you for years is that a fundamental issue happening in this family has absolutely nothing to do with how the families were treated, has nothing to do with Robyn or Kody or Christine or Janelle. It has to do with how they were raised. It has to do with the older children acknowledging publicly that they were raised in a cult. Because in the fall of 2022, multiple children, Gwendolyn, Paedon, even McKelty, all acknowledge they grew up in a cult. They all acknowledge they don't agree with polygamy. They're all deconstructing. In the fall of 2022, that's when everything blows up with Kody and the crux of his arguments with Garrison and Gabriel. And you start to see the decline in the relationship between Janelle and Kody. But what is not being said is that the children are deconstructing. They are waking up from the fog and they're recognizing that the Apostolic United Brethren is a cult. It was actually in the fall of 2022 that Paedon did an interview with John Yates. And he said that had they not done the show, he believes that many of them would still be trapped in the cult and that the show actually saved them from a lifetime of misery and polygamy. I think part of the reason why Robyn feels so desperate for Kody to save these relationships with the kids is not because the kids need him, but because she's worried about what she sees from them, of them decrying against their religion. And I also think what she's reacting to is what they're saying publicly about Kody, about her, what's coming out on the season and what's being shown about them and the feelings towards them. And she's worried about maybe their salvation. I have no idea. But it would appear that a lot of the grievances at that point against Kody were finally bubbling to the surface. And so I think that Robyn is urging Kody to get these relationships under control, to get this leaking faucet to stop, to get them to stop talking about her, stop talking about Kody, to protect polygamy, and to stop them from being awful about the way they were raised. Like, even if Robyn today doesn't believe in it, I believe that back then she still did. And I'm iffy right now because some of her kids are in Christianity now. I did a post a couple days ago where I showed that they're going to this it's a Pentecostal church, part of the New Apostolic Reformation. It's an interesting vibe, but it's Christian. And Aurora and Brianna are active there, and even Saul goes to the youth group. But I think it's interesting because back then she was still very much in her faith still. And I think part of this is we need to save them from the wicked world. But I also think we need to stop the leaking faucet. And that's why she's pleading with him to get them to stop.
I'm so angry about what has happened that if I talk to my kids, I'm worried that they'll trigger me with an accusation. I've had one of my kids just said, "You're an ass. I'm never talking to you again. You manipulated me and you brainwashed me." Some people think that parental-child relationships don't have to be reciprocal, but when they're adults, yeah, they do. I'm not going to reach out forever. I'm willing to make the effort, but somebody else is going to have to be on the other end of that.
Kody says that he has a kid call him up and tell him that he's an a-hole and that he never wants to talk to him again. And he doesn't want to talk to him again because he brainwashed him and he manipulated him. Okay. A lot of people are assuming that this was Garrison. I don't think that this was Garrison that said this, because Garrison called him up and Kody already said publicly what Garrison said. Garrison said on the show what he needed to say. Garrison said, "I don't need a father. I'm done being raised. Okay. I'm not going to deal with your gaslighting. I'm not going to deal with your manipulation. And I'm done." Right? "We don't need a father. You can have her." Because for all of that time, those months leading up to that, he was telling the boys they needed to apologize to Robyn and they weren't going to apologize to her. Okay. I think that this could have been Paedon, or it could have been Hunter, or it even could have been Logan. But Paedon seems like an option here because Paedon started making TikToks in the fall of 2023 or 2022 during season 17. I misspoke earlier and said that he interviewed with John Yates in the fall of 2022. It was actually the beginning of January of 2023, around the same time frame. So the season 17's tell all had finished airing, and it was like in the span of like from January through like April, even into May, Paedon did a series of interviews, a series of them. And he made comments about polygamy, how polygamy didn't work. And if you recall last season, Paedon was on the show and he said that polygamy doesn't work, right? He says that for a long time, they tried to promote this idea that polygamy works, but it doesn't work for his family. That's what he said. Okay. And Paedon was also during that time being very vocal, and so was Gwendolyn. Both of them said in the spring of 2023 that Kody was pressuring Christine to get them to shut up about him, and they were going to try to get TLC to put them into non-disclosure agreements, and they were going to try to get them into contracts and see if TLC would sue them. So he told John Yates that Christine and Kody had had a fight, and he basically said that if the kids keep talking like this, I'm going to sue them. Up until the fall of 2022 and the beginning of 2023, the kids never publicly spoke out really against Kody. They just didn't. They never hinted that there was any problems with the way that they grew up. On the show, they said they weren't going to practice polygamy, but they never said, "Hey, we grew up in a cult. This was weird. I didn't want to live like this." You know what I mean? Like, they've always danced around the topic of the cult and the belief system. Today, they don't really address the faith of the kids. They basically just say most of the kids aren't going to live that way and they're doing whatever they want, right? But until then, until the fall of 2022 and early 2023, none of the kids were speaking out publicly against Kody or Robyn. And then when Christine left, the floodgates opened and all bunch of them, Paedon was one of the loudest, and Gwendolyn. and then Mykelti. Mykelti, a lot of you call a flying monkey of Kody's, but for as much as a flying monkey she is, she acknowledges that the AUB is a cult. She acknowledges that she grew up in a cult, and she acknowledges that she's out of a cult now. Okay. She and Tony do not believe in Joseph Smith. Tony is no longer a member of the LDS. They don't really go to church. They don't really have faith. So they're deconstructing too. And a lot of what Tony talks about, which probably would bore some people, is his own process of deconstructing out of the faith and why he ended up not believing in it anymore. Okay. And so as more and more kids are starting to speak out against it, and I want to be clear, Tony is adamantly against polygamy. Adamantly. So you have all these kids that are adamantly against polygamy, and that doesn't bode well for Kody's show. And at this point, Kody's still trying to hang on to the fact that he's a polygamist, even though he's not. Okay. And so what ultimately ends up happening is during this season, there's an event where Gwendolyn has her engagement party. So it's going to be later this season. It's when Kody meets David. Kody manipulated the film crew to force Gwendolyn to sign a contract with them, which stated that she would not disparage her father or the show. In order for her to walk into her engagement party, she had to sign that document. She stated on her Patreon that she felt like she signed that document under duress and she didn't understand why, and she couldn't go to the party unless she signed it. And so that trickled into the fall of 2023, and I think that was a huge reason why she didn't go to Christine's wedding. She and Christine are doing better now. She actually was just on a trip with her mom in Sedona with Janelle and her wife. So, but at the time, she was very hurt by it because she felt like her dad was trying to silence people. And it's also around that same time. So once Paedon's video goes live on John Yates, I was actually, I spoke to John. I was over on his panel like a couple weeks ago, and I was answering some of his questions. He'll reach out to me sometimes and ask me to come to his channel and speak about polygamy, and I'll do it. And he told me that when that went live and the family saw it, Paedon begged him to take the video down because apparently the family didn't want that live. It was very damaging to Kody and very damaging to the show. And he wanted John to take the interview down. And John wouldn't take it down because by the time that Paedon asked him to take it down, that interview was being talked about in all kinds of outlets. I mean, every media outlet was talking about the things that Paedon was talking about. All the issues with Kody, all the issues with the cult, all the issues with, patriarchy and the way that they were raised and polygamy and Robyn and his dad. And the abuse of Mary. I mean, that was when Paedon said that Mary abused the siblings. Okay. And if you notice during this season, Mary's not filming with anyone. Nobody's talking to Mary. Mary's very isolated from everyone. And so this was also the same time where the kids were finally at a point where they didn't want to have relationships with Mary, especially the ones that had been targeted by her. Whether you like Mary or not, I choose to believe children when they make allegations like this. And I believe Mary is a victim of Kody, but I also know well enough in this cult that women can victimize children. And I'm not going to be naive and not believe what Gwendolyn saw, what Paedon saw, what Maddie has said she experienced, and what Mykelti has experienced. 4 separate kids have made abuse allegations against Mary. Now, Gwendolyn says she believes in redemption and she believes that Mary has turned a new leaf and she doesn't worry about Mary anymore. She wasn't, but the older kids, many of them want nothing to do with her. So it's around the spring of 2023 that all of a sudden Paedon goes quiet. So whatever was being pressured by Robyn there, it's about we need to stop this leaking sieve about what these kids are saying about us. You need to get these relationships right so they stop talking shit about us. That's what it's about. So they don't damage the show, so they don't ruin our paychecks, so they don't ruin us. I want to believe that she actually cares about the kids, but as I started thinking about it more, I'm like, there's no way. This is about damage control. It's not about trying to paint her in a better light. It's about protecting their money. It's always about the money with these two. That's my opinion. But they clearly did not want anyone to think that polygamy was the root cause of the problems because that completely goes against everything they've said on the show. You know, you've got Janelle saying, well, our kids are well adjusted, but then you also have kids saying, you've manipulated and brainwashed me. You've got kids saying, the only reason we're not in a cult is because you went on the show, and the show is actually part of the reason why we hate each other as a family. And when Kody says that gossip is destroying the family, that's what he's talking about. That's the gossip he's talking about. That's it. The gossip that's not just being said within the family, but to the public. Because he's never cared about what was said before. It was always being said, which is exactly what Janelle said. He was always being a gossip. So why does he care now? Because it was becoming public. They didn't want their secrets exposed. And that's my opinion. So the fact that you have him admitting that someone's accusing him of brainwashing was my moment last night, where I was like, that's what this is about. This is about protecting polygamy, protecting the show, protecting and stopping the leaking faucet, controlling the kids again, getting them under his control. Because if Kody gets better relationships with the kids, then theoretically he can get back under and control them. And that's really what Robyn wants. That's my opinion. So I am sad that the kids are no longer vocal. And I hope that outside of McKelty, who still speaks, that the other kids will start to feel more comfortable sharing their stories. I hope the kids know, like Paedon and any of them, whether it's Hunter or Logan or, you know, Leon or Gwendolyn or Isabel, Savannah, Gabriel, any of them, you know, they have a right to share their story, and they have a right to feel justified in their anger and outrage about the way that they were raised. And they don't need to feel like they have to protect their family just because of the show. Like, they should feel like it's okay to speak and they shouldn't be silenced. And Kody was pressured by Robyn to silence them. And that's what that fight's about. What are your thoughts? Do you agree or not agree? Tell me in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't subscribed yet. Click the bell so you can get notified of any time I go live. Thank you all so much for watching. Bye, everyone.